Hey everyone, Rob from Southgate Media Group here. Before we get started with this podcast, we have a quick message. If this is your first time checking out the show, we love that you found us and we really hope you enjoy it. What we have to say is for the subscribers. If you enjoy our shows, would you please donate to help keep these going? We don't want to have to put traditional ads on these shows, but this does cost money. So we really do rely heavily on donations. To make a donation to the show, please go to our website, www.southgatemediagroup.com. Go to the page for the show, and in the upper right-hand corner is a donate button. It takes you right to PayPal, and you can donate whatever amount you want. Thanks a lot for listening, everybody. And now, on with the show.
You are now booted up and online. We are now in control of your primary operating system. You have chosen the AutoExec.Bat podcast. This show is a fan tribute to AMC's Halt and Catch Fire TV show. Not listening is an illegal operation and will result in a program process error.
Shall we play a game?
Okay, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 1, SETI episode of AutoExec.Bat. We're going to be reviewing, of course, our podcast on Halt and Catch Fire. I'm joined today, co-host Jesse.
Hello there. How we doing?
Oh, we are doing great. We're excited to have Season 2 going again, and we're able to talk about new stuff about Halt and Catch Fire.
We are. It is seemed, we were talking just before we hit record, it seems like it's been a really long between the two seasons. It probably hasn't been, but it just seems that way.
Just a little bit too long to deal with, because we just need more of this show.
Absolutely. And so I shared, in the spirit of being very open with my co-hosts and listeners, I had the episode on my DVR. I started playing it, and I went, wait a minute, Donna's working with Cameron? What the hell? So I stopped, and I pulled up Netflix, watched the final episode, and I went, oh yeah, now I remember. I had forgotten that Joe had burned a 18-wheeler full of machines.
Yeah, and that definitely plays into that episode, or the first episode.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. But not to get too ahead of ourselves.
Right, absolutely.
First off, the voice you're not hearing, Matt wasn't able to join us, so we had a scheduling conflict. We're going to make sure he's on the next ones that we record, so don't tune us out because you don't hear Matt's lovely voice.
Absolutely. We miss you, Matt, and we appreciate it is really difficult to get three people at times schedules working together, and especially we have done a few rewatches and episodes, but now then we're going to get on a schedule and it will be much easier.
Right. And for our listeners that have listened to the Meet the Host podcast, and then we also did a recap of the first half of the first season. We did talk about doing a second half recap, but we just never got around to that. But we're going to try to stay current with Season 2 so that we can keep everybody updated with what's going on with Season 2, and then I guess we don't even need to go back and do a recap of the second half of the first season.
No, I think we'll end up, we'll talk about things that have happened and we'll share with it. And so, hang with us. It's going to be a fun ride. We are going back to the 80s, and this should be, this show is just always interesting. We talked about one of the things I like about the show is that your main characters are shades of gray. There's no one that you really, I guess there's a couple of people you like a lot, but they're all flawed individuals, which makes for a wonderful drama.
It certainly does. And there's just, so many different layers to these characters. And you just wonder what's going to happen next.
Absolutely.
So I want to start off with the title of the episode. SETI being the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. They're talking about around the campfire scene that we got a little bit of a story with Joe having a romantic relationship now, or like a full-time romantic relationship. But then we also, I mean, the way I also looked at it was almost like a metaphor for the chaos that was in Team Mutiny.
Yeah, I really agree. I had a question for you, Dave. Were you a little surprised when the episode started and you see, Cameron and, Joe in this, relationship, and he's heading off to work? I did not realize that was a flashback at first. I was like, wow, when they got together on the off season, what the heck's going on? Were you a little confused, or did you know immediately that this was set in a previous time?
Yeah, no, that messed me up also.
Okay, good.
Yeah. In fact, you saying that was a previous time, I guess I didn't even catch that part. So maybe I was a little behind even just watching this episode. So you're saying that was before he had this regular relationship with,
Yeah.
I did get her character name, but
Yeah, it is Sarah.
okay.
Is his new relationship? Yeah, they are talking about the. This is in the. I guess it's 83, 84, because the Galveston hurricane. And then you do see there, 20 months later or something like that, where they talk about it.
Okay.
So yeah.
And then it plays into something we may talk about in a few minutes
Yeah.
or a little bit later with him
Yeah.
playing interactive games with her online. But
Yeah,
yeah,
Hurricane Alicia was in 1983, and remember in last season they did not pay the money to show the Apple commercial, but they talked about the Apple commercial,
right,
the famous thing. So kind of sets you up where they're going.
right. So the whole crazy scene where they're showing all the programmers, developers that are in Team Mutiny. I love there was a dialogue there between two of the programmers where they're talking about backgammon taking 500K of space.
Yes.
Yeah, and it says, well, why does backgammon need to be, half a meg? And the guy was just like, color is good.
Yeah, it was very interesting to remind you of where we are. Later, they talk about that after they finished gaming against each other, they were just chatting, and they were paying $5 an hour, for internet. And I thought that was very interesting. Yeah, absolutely. Color is cool, but I remember I'm that old that I remember when our monitors were just monochrome, and yeah, you would have a dark, checker set and a lighter check-in set or backgammon or chess or whatever you want. The idea of having actual colors, I see their point. It seems extravagant, right?
Right.
Because how many people have color monitors?
Yeah, and having to spend 500K worth of space, for backgammon.
Yeah.
You would figure that there would have been a cooler application to choose from, rather than putting color on backgammon. But it was cool nonetheless. Just thinking it from the storage perspective.
Yeah, and how much we wouldn't think of that space now, at all. I guess if you're sending it via Outlook, you're concerned about space, but now then there's so many other ways to, well, in this show, right? We both record the episode, and if you need my backup, I throw it in a Dropbox, spot, and you can pull it, and it's just amazing when you think about this is only 30 years ago. Right, and just had the difference.
Yeah, and even the size of the file that would be our recording, we would blink at an eye of a half a meg. That'd be like, that's just too easy.
Yes,
too small.
exactly. Right. Absolutely. I think of the early flash drives, how amazing, that you could get 1 or 2 megabytes, in a little flash drive. Like, oh, this is great. You don't have to put it on a floppy. You don't have to, save it to a disk. We can just put it on this little magical disk, and which reminds you, of course, us geeks of, Star Trek putting it on a floppy, but they had it. It would look more like a portable drive, and so yeah, very cool.
Right. The game they were playing it was called Parallax, wasn't it?
I did not catch the game. They showed them the two. It looks like tanks fighting each other, right?
Right.
At the very end of the episode, but I assume they have a old, similar to Infocom, the old Infocom games, where it was a text game where you had to solve, because Cameron was talking about, well, the hologram, and her answering the help about, okay, and didn't just give her the answer, kind of walked her through how to do this, which was, I thought, pretty slick.
Yeah, and Cameron seems to have really gotten very comfortable, like on the social aspect scale of things. Whereas on the first season, I felt she was like so introverted, but in this particular case, it was just kind of like, I just want to do my thing, but I'm, comfortable in my own skin where I can unofficially lead this group of, ragtag programmers.
Yeah, and, I really want to talk about, I thought the discussion between her and Donna was really interesting because, and, I am a management person. I've spent the past 25 years managing contact centers. And by the way, I'm looking for a new work home. So if anyone needs a call center guy, JWJ170104, I'm just saying. But
plug in yourself. I love it.
Exactly. People think they don't want structure, but I think most employees do want at least some sense of structure. And I'm not saying that it has to be all rules and regulations and as stiff as EDS used to be, where, everyone wore a white shirt and a tie and blue slacks, But the idea of there are no bosses and there is no hierarchy, and this whole, who's going to take care of it? I don't know. We'll figure it out. No, we won't figure it out unless someone does it, right?
Right.
And I thought that was pretty interesting. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, that's it was a very interesting dialogue where, I guess Donna obviously is used to being the leader. Obviously she's a mother, and she had some semblance of being an organized structure in her previous work life. So, to come to this environment that doesn't have structure, I could see how that would be something that she really feels, is lacking and needed. But it kind of proves her point, as they're sitting there having that dialogue, and then all of a sudden the circuit blows.
Yeah, and so there is a movie called The Last Castle that was directed by Rod Lurie, and he did a commentary on a DVD about it, and he's done some interesting movies. I like watching his films. He's done The Contender and The Last Castle and other things. And in the commentary for The Last Castle, he says that West Point says they don't create leaders, they find them. And the premise of the movie is that Robert Redford, who's a general that goes to a military jail, can't stop being a leader. Even though he just, he wants to just service time, and, he starts becoming a leader, with these inmates because he can't stop himself. And I think, Donna is a born leader. And I don't want to diminish her by saying a born mom, but I'm saying she has that leadership. She has that taking things and putting it in control and putting it and taking care of things. And, it is hard for, even though she says she doesn't want to do this, when she sees something that needs to be done, it's not in her makeup or her being to just let it sit there. She's going to take care of it.
And to be clear, when I mentioned that, she was, a mom aspect, I meant that being that she was totally organized and
Yes.
she's used to, just like you said, you see something needs to get done, you just do it. It's the,
Yeah.
I'm not grossed out that I've got to wipe my kid's butt or something like that. You
Right.
just do it.
And I really
And that's the Donna
yeah.
character.
And I really like the fact that she says, I don't want to be the mom here. I do that at home.
Right.
I join this because I want to do cool things. And I thought it was really neat. And there's, a couple kinds of storytelling. There's a storytelling where the audience and the characters in the show are both unaware of what's going on. And then another kind of storytelling is where the audience knows more than the characters. And so for Donna talking about, I think there's something socially here. I think there's something that, people will want to talk. And I think that's where we need to work on. We are going, absolutely, you're on to something. But she doesn't know that. She's just thinking, I think this is something that would work. And it's very cool.
Yeah, most definitely. But you're right. Yeah, she had that aspect where she wants to be doing something cooler and not just being, in charge. And you saw that aspect where she was trying to get involved with, the chat aspect of their game. And then even when she got in that little adventure of getting the computer, from the back of the van or whatever. So yeah, she kind of broke out of her mold a little bit, and it's good to see the fun Donna character.
It really was. And, you know, I don't know if it's a smart business model to be buying your PCs to run your server farm from, oh yeah, he's a fence.
Right.
But it made for a really cool scene. And, I love when Cameron shows, her kind of, she's a little bit crazy. And I was just cheering when they were like, stealing the guy's computer to get their money back. It was great.
Yeah, it was 2 new XTs in the boxes, and the line was like, "Leave the money, just grab the gear."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I love that. It was very Thelma and Louise type moment.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, and what she yelled something at as they were driving away. Hey, do you still want my number? I think she said.
I
Yeah.
did not catch that. That's great.
Yeah.
That's so wonderful. Yeah.
Well, one of the lines that was near the beginning that I thought was really funny was when Cameron says they were using trickle-down electricity, after she talks about stealing the electricity from the neighbors. So I want to make sure I mention that.
Yes, that was wonderful. Very of the time, right?
Yep.
Trickle down economics. Yeah, that is, I don't know if that's the best plan, that I'm gonna just take a huge industrial extension cord and plug it into the guy's, outlook from outside. That's pretty rough.
Yeah, it is. And the great thing about Cameron is that she's able to justify that in her mind because the neighbors are rich.
Yes,
Right,
that was very, very funny.
Yeah. Moving forward, did the Giant Pro commercial? There was that whole Jack and the Beanstalk thing. That was kind of weird.
Yeah, that in fact, I had a similar thing. It's on my DVR, and I'm flipping through the commercials, and all of a sudden, wait a minute, let me go back because this is part of the show.
I did the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I thought it was like some part of another commercial or something, but yeah, because they bled right from the commercial break in the TV show to the Jack and the Beanstalk thing with
Yes.
Gordon.
Yeah, and you kind of feel like this is one of those things, be careful what you wish for, right? And the old cliche, like what's the dog going to do if it catches the car,
Right.
right? So, he's built this system. It's now successful, but it's not. And I'll do the trifecta of cliches, right? Money doesn't buy happiness. So it's successful and done, but he wants more. And I think they did a great job of showing that, his being kind of uncomfortable on camera till he kind of talks about, well, I'm going to go back to my garage because all good thinking comes from the garage. And, Donna looks so proud of him. By the way, I am so glad Gordon shaved off the beard at the end of last season. I think he looked a lot better without the beard. And that was uncomfortable last season. Just throwing it out there.
All right. Well, for me, the uncomfortable scene for me was watching as he was kind of cleaning his desk out as they're taking all the furniture out. He really, the actor Scoot McNairy did such a wonderful job with just portraying that moment of, I'm in this comfortable surrounding, being this office that I've been in for X amount of years, but, there's some big changes happening around me, but I'm just going to, just be there, because what can you do? Just deal with the fact that somebody's taking all your furniture away as you're packing up your box.
As I talked about, all kidding aside, I really was, my company released me at the end of March. So I had that experience, not taking away the furniture, but, I had been with the company 9 years, and I'm someone that tends to have a pretty, an office filled with a lot of crap, is what my wife calls it. I call it, cool stuff. I have a TARDIS cookie jar on my desk, and I had, I have a Borg cube and, different, a Superman globe and all kinds of different things, on my desk and on my bookcase. And so I had to pack everything up, and it's a very surreal feeling. And so I felt for him. And then I also thought it was a really good point where at the end, Donna tells him, he says, well, I guess this is a good thing, right? And she says, but you didn't have a choice. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, this is what happened. And so that felt home too, because same thing with me. This was not my choice to leave the company. They decided to go in a different direction, and I know in the long run I'll find something. But very close in a very significant part of the episode is Gordon looking for, what am I going to do? And even though financially, like he tells his daughters when they're having the celebration, Brahms, by the way, if you aren't from Brahms is a local ice cream chain here, dinner, and he's saying, are we millionaires? A couple of years if we invest right, yes. So I think that's pretty cool. And I'm looking forward to this season's journey, right? Of where is he going to go?
Well, I think you see some pieces getting laid out, and where you think it may go. Of course, it's Halt and Catch Fire we're talking about. We don't know exactly how it's going to go.
Right.
But, all of a sudden you have the mutiny group having difficulty financially, obviously. Mm-hmm. And then there's, Gordon with a big check. You have the Joe McMillan character looking to be a leader. They need a leader there. So you kind of have these open spots where you can see it's where they could go.
Yeah. And you do see that. By the way, I was just curious. I don't know if anyone else was, but I wanted to see $800,000 is a lot of money. And so I'm like, hey, if someone wants to give me a check for a little over $800,000, thank you. I will appreciate it. But I was curious what that is. And, according to the internet, dollartimes.com, 800,000 in 1984 is roughly $1.8 million in 2015.
Yowza.
So not that $800,000 is a lot of money, but that is that is a huge windfall. And we're kind of jumping around, but listeners, that's how we're going to do this. Let's just
we're random kind of guys.
We are random kind of guys. I couldn't see, was Joe's check before they ripped it up about $500,000?
No, actually, I don't remember seeing it clearly, but yeah,
Okay.
other than the ripping it up in front of him, and obviously being quite upset with the whole burning of the truck, with all the gear, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I thought that was a great scene of, and kind of, for those of you following along, what we're talking about is, Cardiff has been bought by a bigger company. And so the people that are investors are going to get money. And so they're all signing the deals and they're getting the checks that day. And so, this is the first time Gordon and Joe have seen each other. Though Joe did say, "Did you get my letter?" And I would have loved to read that letter. "Hey, sorry I burned our first shipment and ran off, but hey, let's be BFFs,
Right. And that's my problem with the Joe character, is that he does all this self-destructive activity, and that seems so crazy. But then, you have moments like in this first episode where you want to like, oh no, he's okay, he's fine, he's not going to go off the handle again. Because you almost see like a tear in his eye in that elevator scene.
Yeah, and if I have a complaint, it's I don't quite understand why he did that.
Right.
Why he did this. And like Cameron just quit because she says, it's got no soul. But,
well, I mean, with Cameron, they, she had a line, and they crossed that line, and she was like, done.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I'm glad they had the discussion. I thought that Nathan was just staring daggers at Gordon, when Gordon's signing it. And I loved he looks at the check, it's, $830-something thousand or something. I can just take it to the bank. And the attorney, yeah, that's how checks work, or something like that.
Oh, that was classic.
It was like, I'm just saying, if it's me, I'm rushing it to the bank right away. Hey, let's deposit this thing and make sure it clears. And
yeah, because obviously he's got to buy a few elephants for his daughters.
Yes. Right. And then when
Joe comes in.
Yeah, and they're signing the paper, and at first Nathan didn't say anything. He just beats the desk, knocks on it a couple times, and they give him the check, and he walks over, shows it to him, and then just cuts it up and says, "Sue me. Sue me, because I'd love to tell a jury what you did, the lives you ruined." That reminded us that John, who we thought was going to end up being, when we talked about it, John Bosworth, played by the great Toby Huss, was going to be kind of the villain, but he actually ended up being a really cool, foil and kind of their advocate in a lot of ways. They were on this together.
Right.
Ended up going to jail because he was trying to, get enough money to keep, he was robbing Peter to pay Paul to try to get this, computer on the market.
Yeah, trying to keep Giant get created and be on the market, right?
Yeah.
So, but and speaking of John Bosworth, I mean, that's another person that's a leader that could also fill that role. So
Absolutely.
so there's like a lot of different directions that the show can go in. That's kind of interesting to think about.
It was, and I was very happy that, because I felt like it was kind of out of nowhere. Cameron's, driving out, and she's got the map, and all of a sudden, when you see it's a prison, then I go, uh-oh, okay, of course. And then when you see John come, you're like, okay, that's kind of cool, what they're going to do with him, that there was, obviously some affection, when he gets out. And so it appears they've at least stayed in contact, right?
Right.
Okay, good. So I know one thing we hadn't talked about. So Joe is involved with this Sarah Wheeler, and I guess she was the person that was at the observatory.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, I like that actress. She's been in Boardwalk Empire. She did a couple of shots in Sopranos, so I guess nothing really big except Boardwalk Empire, now Halt and Fire. But the actress was very likable, and the character I liked a lot. And she seemed to be really good for Joe. And I'm all about redemption and people finding themselves. So I'm okay with Joe being a little bit crazy, but I'm okay if, she's kind of calmed him down and helped him to be a little more focused crazy. Does that make sense?
It does, and what's so interesting about their relationship is it appears that Joe has been completely brutally honest about all of his sins to her, and she's not, she understands him, or she's able to, keep him, reminding him of the facts, of those, transgressions that he's done, which is very interesting for the relationship.
It really is. And I always, one of the things I get frustrated at while watching a movie, TV show, is if the two characters would just talk to each other, the conflict would be resolved.
Right.
And so this one, to see that he has kind of bared his soul and shared. And it was interesting, her saying, well, you don't need the money. We don't need the money. When I was like, really? What? Does Joe have some money I don't know about? Or was, what's going on? That was an interesting take. But she's like, hey, just don't worry about it.
Yeah, definitely an interesting relationship. I'm curious if that's going to be a full on season relationship, or Joe being Joe is going to do something to make it so that it's ruined in some way, shape, or form, because it's a drama, right? I mean,
Yeah.
nobody can stay 100% happy, because if it's everyone's happy, then I guess why would we watch?
Yeah, and I do think that this being Halt and Fire, I mean, there are, and it, you figure he's going to screw it up somehow, right?
Oh yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
So the thing that we got to make sure we get in here is co-host Matt. He had sent us a message, and he had indicated that PlayNet, I guess, which is around Arizona, was probably the basis for the gaming company that is Mutiny. So I thought that was a really interesting take. He actually sent us an article from Ahoy Magazine, so I got to still read through that, but I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm glad one of us three are doing research. Hey, I looked up the cost of the money, so I figured that's a little something, right?
Right.
It's I love the fact that they try to stay as close to the real world without, totally making things, they try to be what really happened in the 80s and what's going on. So I am not sure how things are going to be happening there at Team Chaos. I know that isn't their official name, but that's what I'm calling them. That house of just, lights going off and bandwidth issues and all the problems. I am worried about them, and I agree with you. They need a strong leader. They need someone to come in there and take care of things. And John just might have enough force and enough of discipline to do some good there. Versus Joe, it seems to be more of a, dream the dream, get things going.
Well, yeah, but if they had the whole team together, right? I mean, if you were to have John be the leader as he is,
Yeah,
and put some structure on it, but you still have a Joe who's their, I don't know, advertising executive.
yeah, or the
Yeah,
vision, driving the vision,
right.
and getting the best out of Cameron and Donna, and then Gordon having the money, and he is a really good hardware guy.
Right.
So there is a lot of pieces there that if I personally was going to build a team, that's what I would want to do.
Yeah, I think, with the lineup that we described, yeah, that would be a very unstoppable company. However, you would have to stop Joe from burning things.
Yes. We're going to, okay, rule number 1. Yeah, no more burning junk.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
no burning, and let's not create drama just for a
yeah,
article, for a magazine.
yes. And, we've talked a lot about him, but I thought it was really interesting that Donna's talking to Cameron at the end going, mutiny, we're not thinking long term. We're just doing band-aids and band-aids on thinking what's going to go. So we're going to find out what happens. I think they did a great job of catching us up where all the characters are and setting up where this journey could take us, which is, I guess, really what all you want from a first episode of a new season.
Yeah, I think it was mostly good for me. The only thing that I had issue with was trying to get into the Joe character and understanding the motivations. That's a season 2 Joe versus a season 1 Joe,
Yeah,
and I'm still, I guess I'm still not trusting him. And but I want to, based on the emotions that he's showing and how he shows a big amount of regret as to what he's done to ruin the lives of people that were helping that vision.
I think, Dave, you're very right, and that's you don't want to trust him again. You don't want to set yourselves up to what are they going to do and what are they going to happen, and will he go crazy again? So very interesting. Excited about the next season, and I'm excited about us talking about this season on this podcast.
Yeah, most definitely. This is fun as always, and I just it's not able to not only just watching the show, but also getting this these moments to geek out about it with you and Matt, who appreciate the show,
Absolutely.
being able to share that love for the show.
Yeah. Is there anything that we didn't cover? Because I don't think so.
I don't think so. The only thing that I
Okay.
thought was really kind of funny was the line where it's like, uh, if you unless you can code in Chinese, he ripped us off.
Yes. Yeah. I thought that was a really great. That was a great line. It was really funny. Yes.
Yeah.
How would you rate it on a scale 1 to 10? How would you rank it?
Actually, I was going to propose
Yes.
a scale that we can grade each episode going
Okay.
forward.
All right.
And it was actually unfortunately based on having 3 co-hosts on, so it's not.
Okay.
I don't know if it's going to play well, but
Okay.
just to give you what I was thinking of is, as we're talking about these episodes and we were to grade them, it'd be on a 1 to 3 scale.
Okay.
The number 1 would be a byte, the second
Okay.
one would be a kilobyte, and the third one would be a megabyte.
Okay.
So each of us would give our grade as to if it's a megabyte, kilobyte, or a byte.
Okay.
And if all 3 of us said it's a megabyte, then it graduates to a gigabyte.
Very. That is so geek. I was going to give it 8.5 pairs of elephants. But I like your plan better.
Okay.
So I'm going to give it. I like to wait and give the top scale and do them rare. So I would do the middle. I would do number 2. The what did you?
Kilobyte.
Yeah, kilobyte. I would give it a kilobyte.
And that's where I'm at too, because I
Okay.
mean, overall everything was great about the episode,
Yeah.
but because I have such that conflict with the Joe character, that's where I'm holding out, giving it the top rating. But I gotta tell you, I just love what Lee Pace is doing with it. He's such a great actor.
I really do want to stress that, Lee Pace is having a great time with this. I think all the actors are really bringing it, and even down to Graham Beckel, who played Nathan. I mean, he didn't have many scenes, but those scenes he have just kills it. And I've already talked about that the Aleska Palladino playing Sarah Wheeler. You immediately like her and feel good, and Cameron and Donna's interactions are wonderful, and Scott McNairy is playing the I don't know, being lost really well, and so great start. I'm looking forward to it. So, where can our listeners reach you if they want to give you feedback and to hear other podcasts you're doing?
Well, it's all about 80s Reboot. So the Twitter account's 80s Reboot. The Facebook page is facebook.com/80s Reboot.
Okay.
And obviously, there's a wealth of podcasts on SouthgateMediaGroup.com. But,
absolutely.
Yeah, but, our 80s Reboot Overdrive is in there.
All right, very nice.
Yep. So, and you're in which shows are you doing again?
So I am doing Next Stop Everywhere, a Doctor Who podcast. And I don't know if you're a Doctor Who fan, but it would be fun to have you guest star on it and talk about an 80s Doctor. That would be fun since we're between seasons right now. So Charles Skaggs and I we're going back and watching old episodes. In the past few weeks, we've actually been listening to Big Finish audios that the Doctor, and that's been kind of fun, a different place. And I also do Storm in the Castle, a podcast all about ABC's Castle. And I can be found at Facebook as well on Jesse Jackson from Louisville, Texas. And my Twitter handle is JWJ170104. We would love to get feedback, and who knows, we might even read it on the show.
Most definitely will.
Yes. So thanks. It was a lot of fun. Now I don't remember. Did we have a fun way to end yet?
No. I mean, I do have like a little tag message I put at the end of it.
Okay.
But
all right.
And normally it says, thank you for reliving the 80s.
Okay.
But yeah, that's just been my catchphrase with 80s Reboot.
So I guess we're going to say Control-Alt-Delete.
There we
and
go.
call it an episode. And that was totally just at the last minute, people, but now we have it.
Exactly.
All right. Thanks, Dave. I appreciate you having me as part of this team. It's going to be a fun season.
Most definitely will. Thank you, Jesse.
Uh-huh.
You have a good night.
All right.
We hope you've enjoyed this show. This podcast is part of the 80s Reboot Overdrive channel on Southgate Media Group. You can follow us on Facebook on the 80s Reboot group page. We're also on Twitter and Tumblr at 80s Reboot. We invite you to check out all the wonderful podcasts and blogs available at SouthgateMediaGroup.com. And thank you for reliving the 80s.